Well, hello, and welcome to the fourth in our series of AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship chat sessions. My name is Salaha Sharif, and I'm the Director of Recruitment for the Policy Fellowships, and I will be moderating today's chat. These chat sessions are a six-part series, and each month will feature fellows with varied disciplines to showcase the diversity of backgrounds, disciplines, and career stages that are represented in the fellowship program. This is your opportunity to hear from fellows and ask any questions you may have about the fellowship experience and the application process. In today's chat, we'll hear from fellows with backgrounds in the social sciences. Joining me today are current fellows Dr. Benjamin Wang and Dr. Laura Ahern. Ben is a first-year AAAS Fellow at the Department of Defense in the Office of Cost Assessment and Program Evaluation, and he will be serving his second year at the Department of Energy in the National Nuclear Security Administration. His work supports the assessment and implementation of the Secretary of Defense's review of the nuclear deterrent enterprise. His background and area of expertise focuses on the way scientific and technical knowledge is created and fitted into societal relations. After receiving his PhD, Ben worked as a contractor with the State Department on conventional weapons destruction and has served as a program officer for the MANPADS Task Force, which is based in the State Department's Bureau of Political and Military Affairs. Ben holds a PhD in Science and Technology Studies from Cornell University. As a first-year fellow, Laura was placed at the Research and Innovation Fellowships at the United States Agency for International Development's Global Development Lab, where she was a monitoring and evaluation specialist. In her second year, she will be at USAID Center of Excellence for Democracy, Human Rights, and Governance as their Senior Learning Advisor. Laura is a linguistic and cultural anthropologist with an expertise and interest in human-centered design, data visualization, and the future of higher education. She has conducted research on literacy, gender, agency, courtship, and marriage practices in Nepal, where she spent 3 years as a Peace Corps volunteer before becoming a researcher. She holds an associate professor position in the Department of Anthropology at Rutgers University and also spent 1 year as a cultural anthropology program director at the National Science Foundation. Laura holds a PhD from the University of Michigan in linguistic and cultural anthropology. Ben and Laura, thank you both for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
So we are here to answer your questions and hear from Ben and Laura as they discuss why they decided to apply to the fellowships, what their fellowship experience has been like, and how they feel the fellowships will impact their future career paths. You can submit a question at any time by typing into our Ask a Question box on the bottom right of your screen and click Send. Please keep your questions brief and direct it to a particular individual or the whole panel, and we'll try to get to as many questions as possible today. The S&T Policy Fellowships are a professional development and public service opportunity for scientists and engineers interested in engaging at the intersection of science and policy. The fellowships are a unique opportunity for you to apply your knowledge, skills, and training in new arenas to national and international issues in the federal policy realm, while also gaining firsthand knowledge and experience establishing and implementing policy. Fellows represent a broad range of career stages and diverse disciplinary backgrounds and serve year-long assignments in the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of the federal government in Washington, D.C. The fellowship program features 7 different program areas, and applicants are encouraged to apply to up to 2 program areas. You can learn more about each program area, including potential host offices, by clicking the Become a Fellow link on the fellowship's website. Fellowship requirements include holding U.S. citizenship and a doctoral degree in science or engineering. Applicants with a master's in engineering and 3 years of professional engineering experience are also eligible to apply. To learn more about the program areas, eligibility, and the application process, please visit the fellowship's website. So now is your chance to ask both Laura and Ben your questions and learn more about the fellowships and determine if it's a good fit for you. Again, as a reminder, please type your questions into the Ask a Question box on the bottom right of your screen and then click Send. To begin, I'd like to start us off with a question. So the first question is for you, Ben. Ben, why did you decide to apply to the fellowships? And how have you applied your background in the social sciences to policy?
Well, first I want to welcome everyone here. Thank you to AAAS for putting this together. It's a fantastic opportunity to be a part of this chat session, as well as being a part of the Science and Technology Policy Fellowship Program. I applied while I was a contractor at the State Department. It was the first job that I had towards the end of finishing grad school, and as soon as I received my degree, I was looking for an opportunity to really engage at a substantive and significant level some of the expertise I had developed through my dissertation research, and wanted to try to expand more fully my engagement with public service and trying to learn more about how subject matter experts, how people with advanced degrees can really sort of engage in the policy making and rule making in politics. And so the fellowship opportunity is fantastic. It's well established. Not insignificantly, it's prestigious and well known, and sort of gives people with the doctorate really a unique position to sort of engage more with our public life. And so that's what kind of drew me into the program. And one of the neat things was the opportunity to sort of interview with different host offices after being selected as a finalist, and trying to find out where my social science expertise that I developed abroad and developed with international organizations could really sort of fit within different parts of our government. And so the Department of Defense was a pretty good fit for me, and so that's where I've been spending my first year.
Great, thank you. So Laura, you come to the fellowships with a background in academia. Can you speak a little bit about why you decided to pursue the fellowship opportunity?
Sure. So I have been in academia, as you said, for a number of years. I have a tenured position at Rutgers University, and I had moved down to this area for a program officer position, just a rotator position for 1 year at National Science Foundation. And so I had a little bit of a taste of what it was like to work in at least one agency, federal agency, but the agencies are very different, and it was very interesting. It has been very interesting to see what different agencies are like, and what I wanted to do for during the fellowship was explore the possibility of either learning more about government service in general for myself, or learn more to convey to my students what job possibilities there were for them. As many people know, career paths in academia have narrowed, and so many of my best graduate students no longer can easily find tenure-track jobs, and this AAAS fellowship is a wonderful opportunity for students, graduate students, to use their skills in a different way. So both for myself to explore something different, and also eventually maybe for my students. I am not sure what I'm going to do for my future career, but for right now, it has been both intellectually and personally and professionally really stimulating, interesting, and just a wonderful opportunity.
Great, thank you. So because the focus of today's chat is on applicants who have a social science background, so one of the advanced questions that we received was the participant was asking is, so my impression is that policy work requires a good deal of quantitative skills. Can you speak about how humanistic or qualitative social sciences contribute to policy? So basically, so why should social scientists consider a policy fellowship? So Ben, I'll pose that question to you first.
Sure. That's a great question. So my degree is in science and technology studies. It was interdisciplinary in nature, drawing on history of science, environmental history, history of technology. So I'm not the strongest quantitative scholar, although my checkbook and online banking gets balanced every month. But there are tremendous avenues for qualitative and more humanistically trained scholars to make a role, to make an impact in policy. I'll speak from my personal experience and then generalize. In the Pentagon, I'm working with organizational climate surveys, basically surveys across the Department of Defense asking airmen, sailors, other soldiers about their perceptions of the quality of leadership, of responsiveness to their needs, the degrees to which they feel fatigued or exhausted. And these are very much qualitative type surveys. Of course, there's a 4-point Likert scale, 1 to 4, and then you just sort of average in, you look at a standard deviation, and you get some basic sort of Excel skills because policymakers like charts. But also, you'll find that at the higher levels, charts always can have some sort of narrative, or one of the jargony terms we use is voiceover, that even though you present this chart, there is still a lot of room to explain what comes out in these surveys. And so that's one skill that I developed as a graduate student that's directly applicable. And I think more broadly as well, policy is typically in the realm of words and not numbers, that it needs to be communicated verbally and in written form. And so having that type of background is a strength that should always be played up and always be honed and practiced in order to sort of communicate more effectively across your department, across your host office, and more broadly.
Great, thank you. So Laura, the same question is for you. How would you describe how humanistic or qualitative social science skills contribute to policy?
I would second, first of all, everything Ben said, that there is definitely not only a place for them, but a need for them, just a real need for them. But having said that, I think that there's also sometimes a need for those of us who may lean more towards the qualitative side to speak up and push back when there might be a little bit more of a fetish of numbers sometimes. I have had the opportunity to use both qualitative and quantitative skills, but let me back up and say that in general, what I've found most useful are the kinds of analytical thinking skills that almost everybody who gets through a social science PhD would or should have. The kind of skills that you will have just from being able to just general research design, thinking, the kind of logical thought processes, argument, and those come into play when you need to, and writing skills, when you need to summarize or succinctly write a paragraph. Everything is shorter. Every executive summaries, can only be a page, and I think actually that has helped my writing in other realms as well. I think academia could use a lot better writing, more succinct writing, but the qualitative, quantitative sort of question. Let me give you a couple of examples. I've had 2 assignments so far because the fellowship program I was originally with has been phased out, which has given me the opportunity to see a lot of different kinds of other programs and eventually land in a new spot, which has been interesting. So I was, even though I'm a fellow, I was originally placed in a different fellowship program for graduate students to go overseas. And as part of that program, I was doing monitoring and evaluation, M&E. And that's one place that a lot of social scientists end up in government, because what it involves actually is studying, doing research on whether programs are effective. Now, that raises a lot of questions. Social scientists, especially anthropologists, might say, well, what do you mean by effective? And you can ask all those kinds of questions. You can, and it's very helpful to have an anthropologist in the room in USAID, for example, to raise questions about, well, what is the cultural context? Have you thought about this when you're doing your programming and that sort of thing? And I've been sometimes the token anthropologist in the room, often the token anthropologist in the room. But it's very useful, and I wish there were more people raising questions like that and doing qualitative research. So I did that at my first assignment, and then in my second assignment here is working on the learning agenda in the DRG Center, Democracy, Human Rights, and Governance Center. We've been formulating questions that will both shape research for the center going forward and also shape what are called learning activities, but it's basically monitoring and evaluation activities for all the different programs in the center. And those activities will be both quantitative and qualitative, will be evaluation and sort of hands-on applied kinds of activities, as well as more sort of a level up or two research, more academic style research, either lit review or actual commissioning of research studies. So and right now I'm in the middle of a, I don't know if any of you know the Atlas TI, Qualitative Database Management Program, of an analysis using Atlas TI on key issue narratives. So a bunch of narratives, going through and coding them and looking for patterns in narratives. So definitely there's a role, there's a need for more qualitative researchers, and there's a need and a place for just general analytical thinking in government.
If I could just loudly second everything Laura said, the point about the analytical training, the ability and skills that you develop as a graduate student, and in possibly sort of postdoctoral opportunities to sort of think logically, clearly, comprehensively, and sometimes having to be that voice in a room with colleagues or in a team, or possibly with senior leaders. Not only be prepared to sort of speak up and sort of bring that intellectual honesty to a discussion, but also be prepared that if you volunteer for, or if you bring up a point, be prepared to be voluntold. That if you become the voice that says, well, what about this? Very quickly, an adept manager will say, that's great, when can you get me that product? Or when can you, you seem to know so much about it, why don't you take the lead? And so it's kind of a neat opportunity, I think, that a lot of fellows will have, that by bringing some expertise, you will be looked at, as Laura said, perhaps being the voice of anthropology, or being the social scientist looking at surveys and sort of organizational well-being across a large enterprise. That this fellowship gives you a tremendous amount of opportunity and potential to make a difference and engage.
I would say one more thing, and I've been meaning to say this from the beginning, which is that the whole science and technology thing, especially for anthropologists, I don't know how many other people or social scientists feel this, but I know in anthropology it's an issue, and it comes up in this question about qualitative versus quantitative. I would just encourage people not to be intimidated by the STEM or the S&T, science and technology. There are times, and definitely numerically, there are more sciencey AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellows than social science fellows, but there's absolutely a place for social scientists and for the more qualitatively oriented social scientists in this program. And I think there needs to be more.
Okay, great. Thank you both. Again, so as a reminder, if you have any questions at any time during the chat, please go ahead and click on the little chat box or the question box at the bottom right of your screen, and then click send. So one of the questions that we just received is there a time limit post-PhD for applying to the fellowships? The answer to that is no. The fellowships is open to individuals at all different career stages. Once you've received your PhD, or for those who have an engineering background, your master's in engineering and 3 years of engineering professional experience, it really sort of is up to you in terms of at what point in your career path you feel that the fellowship would be a great opportunity. And Ben and Laura, I wanted to kind of pose this question to you as well too. Do you have, just through your own experience or just with your interaction with current and alumni fellows, do you have any sort of advice for when would be the best time to apply for the fellowships? So Ben, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I received my degree in May 2013. And as everyone knows from looking at the website, one of the requirements for this particular fellowship opportunity is to have the degree in hand when you apply. I got that, yeah. As opposed to others where you could be ABD or on my honor, I will defend my dissertation before I begin. So it's a little bit of it's a little unusual, but I think what could help other applicants who are in a similar position to mine where this fellowship opportunity makes sense shortly after receiving your degree is to find in that little bit of time as you're either wrapping up your dissertation is to start thinking about how you could prepare, that there might be a little bit of time between when you receive your degree and when you're able to apply, and then subsequently begin the opportunity, the fellowship. And so possibly moving to Washington earlier, finding more policy-oriented type positions. There are other short-term internships at think tanks or other sort of comparable opportunities, and it sort of might get your feet a little bit more wet, and so that you aren't delving in straight away from doing ethnographic research in one part of the world to, I guess, doing ethnographic research in another part of the world, Washington, D.C., in the halls of policy. So I sort of want to try to generalize what happened for me of finding a contracting opportunity with the State Department before I was eligible, and then able to apply to the Science and Technology Policy Fellowship, and then having something to do, having gainful employment, and a way to sort of keep my career moving between applying in November, December, and then being able to start the following September.
Great. Laura, is there anything that you'd like to add to that question?
Yes, so I guess I would speak to maybe a different segment of the audience, and that would be maybe a segment that's already on a career path, maybe already in academia, or maybe private sector, or research institutes or something like that, and you want to either take a break, or maybe you've been on a series of temporary positions. So many of my students have been, one visiting assistantship, professorship to another, or you have a leave coming up, a sabbatical or something like that, or intellectually you just want to try something new, or you want to be of service, or there's a lot of reasons, and that's why for all of those reasons, basically the latter couple, trying something new and wanting to be of service are what drew me to it, and I think that it was 20 years exactly from my PhD since I applied in 1994 to 2014 that I actually not quite that I applied, but by the time I got that it came through, and it takes a long time. It takes a full year of application till I got the fellowship, and I think it's there recently among the fellows. Definitely it skews younger. I'm still young. And there's a bunch of us there are all these affinity groups. It's kind of like being back in grad school again, and that way there's a lot of things going on. You can join this group, join that group. It's very interesting, exciting. Everybody has different interests. And there's a group that just started, FOF, and fellows over F, They were
These fellows over 40.
It could be, it's expensive.
Yeah, it could be anything. It could be whatever you want, but so those of us who've joined are fellows who are maybe a little more mature, either intellectually or chronologically, age-wise, however you want to define it. But we are in the minority, but there's a bunch of us, and it's I think just as meaningful, if not more, as a life experience, intellectual experience, professional experience. I think whenever you do it.
Great. So I just wanted to follow up on two points that were made. So one is the affinity groups. So the affinity groups are special interest topical areas of interest to the fellows. They're run and managed by the fellows, and it's an opportunity to kind of stay engaged either within your particular discipline area or issues related to science communication, minority education, big data, global health. Fellows bring in guest speakers. There's networking opportunities. They put together conferences and workshops. The other point I wanted to just kind of highlight, so Ben had mentioned that there are other fellowship opportunities and their eligibility requirements are a little bit different. So the AAAS, we have 32 partner societies that are primarily professional societies that sponsor congressional fellows. And so their eligibility requirements, application deadlines are all different. So some of our partner societies, as long as you complete your PhD by the start of the fellowship year, which is September 1st each year, then you'd be eligible to apply. So if you're interested in a congressional fellowship opportunity, I would encourage you to check out our partner tab on our website, and you can see the full list of other partnership or other fellowship opportunities through the AAAS partner societies. So one of the other questions that just came in is for both of you. So the question is, what do you think was the key thing in your application which made you successful in getting your position? So Ben, we'll go ahead and start with you for that question.
I don't know. It's hard to generalize from an N of one. I think what I try to highlight in my application, which I'm certain was vastly different than my peers, colleagues, who social scientists or otherwise, was I think what really motivated me was the opportunity for public service, and so I stressed that in my writing. And when I had the opportunity for the second round interview through video conferencing, that was something I try to highlight to the panel as well. And not just being able to verbally say, I want to serve the public, but trying to connect it to my proven experiences and successes of finding opportunities in graduate school where the academic and intellectual expertise that I was developing could serve other ways beyond scholarship. I think that was sort of one thing, because everyone here has a doctorate, and that already puts you in a very small percentage of even those U.S. citizens who are able to have a chance with higher education. So I can't even say that I was smarter than most or I had a really compelling thesis or argument, because everyone here is really bright, and there are so many different fields, and AAAS doesn't necessarily, and I can't speak for AAAS, but from what I can see from alumni and my colleagues, there's not a clear preference for, we really want biologists or chemists, or I guess even back to sort of more Cold War-y, the physicists and the engineers, they really know what's going on. I don't see that sort of disciplinary preference, and so I think for me, coming in to say that I'm just as bright as everyone else, and I think I can be a good fit for this opportunity because of what I've done in terms of a more publicly oriented career. I think hopefully maybe was the reason that I'm here speaking to you on this end of the camera.
Great. And then Laura, what about yourself?
I actually don't really remember what I wrote that much. But I kind of remember in general the types of what I was thinking, and now that I've been a fellow for a year, I'm thinking of how I would advise somebody. I would probably suggest, and I think I tried to do this, pointing out a little bit, as Ben said, the types of experiences that you had outside of academia that maybe showed not only your previous service activities, but also your flexibility and how you can apply your skills in different arenas, because that's definitely what you're going to be called upon to do. If you are an academic, the type of academic who only wants to study your narrow topic, and that's all you want to do, and just study that and then teach that, that's fine, but probably you're going to be happier and better suited to stay in academia. But if you're the type of person who wants to learn about everything and wants to really stretch and kind of try to figure out where you could both learn more and then teach over here, or apply what you know in this way. And if you have a maybe more flexible way of, and you have to be, this is maybe not so much about application, I don't know how you would write this in your application, but somehow or other indicate that you need to not be so, how do I say this? In academia, you have to feel like you need to know everything in order to be an authority, and you can't write anything until you have 100% or very close to it assurance that you know everything on that topic, on that very narrow topic. Here, you need to know a lot about a little bit, or at least a medium amount about a lot of different things, and you need to really have much more breadth. And I find it really intellectually very exciting. Because I get to learn a lot about a lot of different things, and there's a lot of really bright folks in government, who've never gotten PhDs. They might have master's degrees or maybe only bachelor's degrees, and they're doing all kinds of interesting things. They're thinking all kinds of interesting things, and I can learn from them, and that's what I have found most interesting. And I think that quality of being intellectually curious and being willing to be flexible and being able to pivot and being able to make yourself useful. And you will probably, I have never, other than being the token anthropologist and speaking up and saying, have you thought about culture? Have you thought about culture? I've never really used my specific knowledge, my PhD knowledge, that much. But I have used my general, as I was saying before, analytical skills and my academic skills, and you have to be flexible in that way, and somehow indicate that in your application. That's my advice.
I think, Laura, you are 100% spot on, and echoing your preface comment of I don't really remember what I wrote. As you were saying that, I realized, like, wow, I don't remember what I wrote either, until you said the point about being flexible. And jumping ahead a little bit, throughout the application process, after what you submit in November, there's going to be a video type interview, but there's also going to be a written assignment, and you're going to be asked to sort of be able to draft a policy type memo. And I remember, for me, it could have been very easy to default to either my dissertation or what I was working on currently, but the excitement and the opportunity to be a little bit more flexible drove me to write about cybersecurity in different aspects. The idea of what can we do to protect critical infrastructure. Does the idea of like a cyber arms agreement with China work out? And so these are areas that I had a passing interest in as a tax-paying, red-blooded American citizen. It's a phrase we use in the Department of Defense all the time. But also just to sort of demonstrate to the committee that I'm interested in 2 or 3 different federal agencies or committees for the congressional fellowships, and sort of, I don't know what's going to be asked of me, but I'd like to demonstrate to you that the skills that I have, the ability to write concisely, rigorously, directly about an area that, with a little bit of research and sort of gestation, sort of can present what I thought were some sound policy ideas. I think was probably another reason why I'm here today. So.
Great, thank you. So I think this next question might be more so for Laura. So the question is, the participant is asking is, do your positions require a lot of travel? Laura, I don't know your specific travel schedule, but I know that generally the fellows specifically at USAID and the State Department do have a bit of travel in their fellowship assignments. So can you speak to that a little bit, Laura?
Sure. I would have traveled this past year. Well, I did travel in my original assignment to the Research and Innovation Fellowships program. I did travel twice, 2-week to 2-week long domestic trips to recruit students for that program. That's the one that's being phased out. One on the East Coast up and down to different programs, and then the one on the West Coast. And those were really great, a lot of fun and interesting. And then I would have traveled over the summer to India to recruit new hosts for that program. But because, as I said, it was phased out, I didn't get a chance to go on that trip before I moved to a different program. But now in my new placement in the Democracy, Human Rights, and Governance Center, I will most likely over the next year do quite a bit of international travel. A lot of USAID students, fellows do travel. A lot of just employees travel a lot, and I will probably maybe go to Nepal, which is my area of research, but do either, there's a case study, this goes back to what we were saying about qualitative research, there's a qualitative case study that's being done on 6 countries related to democracy, human rights, and governance integration with other sectors, and Nepal happens to be one of the countries. I had nothing to do with the selection there, but so I'll probably go along on that. And then I may go on a couple of the other trips as well. So yes, I probably will do some international travel.
Great. And then Ben, I don't know if you wanted to add anything related to travel at either the DoD or the Department of Defense, or Department of Energy.
Sure. In the Department of Defense, travel varies widely. There are some host offices that pretty consistently take on fellows and are much more outwardly engaged, and so there will be a lot of travel if you're doing chemical and biological defense or biosurveillance. It's very much an international, collaborative, cooperative type of policy engagement, so you will be traveling a bit more. Other offices where you are a little bit more of a, somewhat derisively, but affectionately, like a little bit more of a desk jockey or desk sitter extraordinaire. There might be a few sort of domestic opportunities, but most of your time will be spent within the building, within the Pentagon, sort of engaging broadly, but there's little need to sort of go out. Video teleconferences are fantastic. As all taxpayers should be happy that instead of flying people around the country, we just sort of sit in front of screens and have very productive sessions. Not dissimilar from what we're doing now. So.
Great. And then also just to add a little bit to that, so during the interview process, there's what's called placement week, where you actually are flown to DC and you interview with the different host offices, and that's a great time to kind of learn more about what would be on your portfolio for the year and the travel requirements in your host office. And so that's something for you to consider, whether travel is something that you want to engage in, or if you would prefer an office that does not have as much travel requirements. So I wanted to kind of ask a question related to sort of the fellowship experience, and I think every fellow will tell you that there is no sort of, average day, but could you speak a little bit about sort of your just daily schedule as a fellow? What do you do from day to day, week to week, month to month? What's that experience been like? So Laura, we'll start with you with that question.
You're right. There's no real average, and since I have these 2 different placements, it has been very different. But a couple of observations. First of all, there's one big difference between what I did before as a professor and what I've been doing since I got here, and that is that at least at USAID, everything's organized by teams. And so I've been part of a team, both when I was with Research and Innovation Fellowships and now in DRG Center and at USAID. And it's been very, very interesting. And I'm kind of an introvert, and so I'm used to having my own office. This is not my own office. This is somebody else's office. I wish I had my own office again, but at USAID, the space is a premium. That's one thing, but also at the first program I was with, there were 6 of us in the program, and we had one office that was this size, that belongs to just one person here, and so we could all touch one another, literally touch one another, like around the room. But we became very tight, and we worked really, really close, really, really well together. It was a unique experience for me. It was wonderful, and not without challenges. Nothing like anything I've ever done before. And then in this new placement, the team, we sit in this huge open space 93 or something like that, people sit in this, oh, my light's back on now because I gestured. And, and we're in cubicles, but they're not really cubicles, they're just basically foursomes. And, you have a standing desk and you're in this room, there's no privacy. It's like wide open, so there's space, so anthropology of space, it's not even my specialty, but it's very interesting. So anyway, that is, it's a real difference, working with a team and working in space that's not yours. And oh, I think I lost this.
No, I'm back on.
Okay, but I don't know if I'm on.
No, you're on. We can see you.
Okay, my computer went down, went to sleep maybe. Anyway, I don't know if you can see me or not, but I'm going to continue. So that's a big difference, and I don't know, Ben, maybe you want to talk about some other differences, or maybe your everyday, and meetings. There's meetings. All that.
There is, I think, in addition to being a science and technology policy fellow, I think one of the other adjectives I would use to describe who I am via what I do is, I guess, a communicator, facilitator. A tremendous amount of my time is spent either communicating ideas to other parts of the Department of Defense. So there are a lot of sort of what I think are thoughtful emails, sort of a lot of times sort of pecking out guidance and questions for the services, the Air Force, the Department of Navy, etc., to consider. Quite a bit of time on the phone, actually, trying to establish one-on-one sort of personal connections where emails might seem stern and unforgiving. Being able to pick up the phone or a lot of video conferences and being able to talk to GS-15 or 06 Colonel, Navy captain, sort of the upper echelons of sort of non-executive management, and sort of being able to articulate the questions that we're working on in the Pentagon. So whether it's in the form of meetings, emails, video conferences, sometimes sort of papers or memos to brief up, to go up a chain of command or a leadership chain to sort of articulate what the smartest guy in the room thinks should happen, or the position that sort of evolves from a team. So it's a lot of that. I think one of the key points that I've been trying to take to heart is that because this is a fellowship opportunity, it's not a hard and fast job per se. It is not, for most of us, not government employment. I try to take time out either to support AAAS here with things like this video chat, or trying to write blog entries for the blog that on the Fellows Central section of the fellowship website. And so try to take time to maybe a few days a month to sort of delve into a topic and try to get a grasp on the issues and being able to convey them. There's a new website, sort of a social network of sorts for scientists that AAAS is pushing out. Stop me if I'm revealing things that I shouldn't be.
No, this is great. Continue, Ben. I'll just clarify towards the end when you're done. But yeah, go ahead.
There's a new sort of social networking site that's being pushed by AAAS called Trellis, trellisscience.com. More so than the Facebook of yesteryear, where you have groups around kitschy topics. There's one that I've been trying to support about the Iranian nuclear deal, technically known as a Joint Cooperative Plan of Action, JCPOA. And so there are a lot of discussions there where if I'm not working on memos or a PowerPoint slide deck, I'm trying to sort of get my hands on the issues that are facing our elected leaders and our political leaders, and sort of what this can do. So spending time there and working on writing there. But I think the common theme throughout my days is trying to articulate clearly knowledge, ideas, and policies to others, and sort of to make the system, make our government more effective.
Great. So this question is sort of, the next question relates to sort of post-fellowship. So how do you both feel that the fellowship has changed your career trajectory, and what do you plan to do afterwards? So Laura, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, it's been a wonderful experience. I've learned a lot, and I will either take what I've learned back to Rutgers and hopefully help my students, hopefully incorporate what I've learned just into my everyday life and work. As I said before, I think it's helped my writing. I think it's given me a lot of insight into other career paths that I think we need to be helping our graduate students find. Or I may be looking for something down here, either in government or think tanks or something like that, because I have parents, elderly parents in the area, family issues, and so it's possible that I might stay down here.
Great. And then Ben?
So this fellowship is a professional development opportunity, a career development opportunity, and it undoubtedly makes you smarter, more effective, and gives you new skills. Speaking to social scientists, PhDs, I think I'm preaching to the choir here to say those don't automatically relay or turn into employment. And so for a lot of the fellows, what you think about after the opportunity ends, whether it's after 1 year or 3 years if you renew in an office and go overseas or go to the Gates Foundation, is the usual suspects are trying to find full-term government employment. Sometimes host offices want to keep you on a contract type basis. Another possibility would be to leverage the vast alumni network, and given that this program's been around for 40 years, that it's a rather prestigious, selective, and sort of full of hardworking, ambitious people. The alumni network will have some pretty powerful contacts up at the top, and so trying to leverage those for positions in areas that Laura mentioned, think tanks or other sort of professional societies, organizations. For me, I think trying to continue government service is what I would like to do. I don't think I can speak for all of my colleagues. Some will go back. Some fellows after 1 year will return to their academic posts. Others have already been able to secure employment either in their host office or otherwise. Some people return back to the organization or their last sort of place of employment, but having had this experience makes them far more valuable. I think this is one question where it's probably the hardest to generalize, and I think if you're an applicant considering this program and want to think about, well, where will this lead me? Talk to as many people as you can and sort of get a sense for whose trajectories, whose sort of career profile sort of matches yours, and figure out if their steps will suit you.
Right.
I'll say one thing, that there is wonderful professional development, many opportunities as part of this whole fellowship, that in addition to just being in the placement, there are trainings, there are workshops, and then there are the orientation itself is it 1 week, 2 weeks? I don't remember anymore.
Yeah. 2 weeks, yeah. 2 weeks.
And you think, at least I thought I knew about this government, and I paid close attention to the news, and and lived in the Washington area before, but my goodness, I've learned so much, and also learned things that I wish I had known before, much earlier in my career, and just in general, professional skills, and so in that way also, it's a really great opportunity.
Right. So I think before we wrap up, we'll take one last question. So the question is, are publications a requirement for consideration as an S&T policy fellow? So if you could both kind of speak to what publications you may have highlighted in your application. So Beth, I see you saying 0. So can you talk a little bit about that? And then Laura, we'll have you kind of respond as well too.
So I applied right after I received my degree. I think my field and my department, for better and for worse, didn't emphasize publications per se. So when I received my degree, I had I didn't have any peer-reviewed publications to my name. That's not to say that I didn't write or publish in less not sanctioned, less sort of like valued, I guess, blogging, other sort of shorter pieces, essays, etc. But I don't have any formal publications, and now in my current work, it's a little bit tougher to sort of publish about my work, recognizing security clearance issues and sort of sensitivities. So you won't find my name on Google Scholar very widely, but I don't think that's impeded my success. I think it's just sort of oriented me towards different career options and sort of different possibilities.
Okay, and Laura, I know you've had quite a few publications, so could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I published 2 books and a number of peer-reviewed articles because I've had a number of years in academia and have tenure. So, but I will say that one of my books is a textbook, and I tried very hard in that book to write very accessibly and to explain what the field of linguistic anthropology is in very accessible language, and I think that's something that I also try to do in all of my writing, every day on the job now, and every day in academia. So it's the kind of writing, and in general, I think that's what we should be doing with academics. Excuse me, something like that. But I don't know. Maybe this is not so much something I can answer. I don't think it's required, but I think you just need to be, as I said before, flexible and have something to offer in terms of skills and be willing to apply them in a number of different settings.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so to summarize, it really sort of depends on where the applicant is with regards to his or her career stage and discipline background, and publications are evaluated based on that. And so you sort of both Ben and Laura's responses sort of highlighted that example. So just a quick reminder, we're going to start wrapping up our chat session. So we do have a chat survey that's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. So please take a quick moment to respond to those chat questions, because they do help us plan future chats. And we have just about 5 minutes left, so we're going to go ahead and start wrapping up. And I wanted to wrap up by quickly asking both Ben and Laura to share some parting advice with everyone. So Ben, we'll start with you first. What advice would you have for someone who is considering the fellowships? And then what advice do you have generally for someone who's considering a path in science policy?
Sure. There's a ton of advice. I think the one key point I would highlight to applicants is to do your homework, not just to understand the application process and the steps, but recognize what you will be getting yourself into. Organization, your educational institution, and so being able to sort of talk with them, trying to collect more sort of personal accounts and sort of see how those may or may not fit with your needs. Advice generally for considering a path in science policy: try to be the smartest person in the room in terms of the subject area that interests you the most. Networking is a part and parcel of the policy world, but networking without substance ends up being sort of a little bit more boilerplate. And if you're interested in this fellowship opportunity, then it's almost a self-selecting crowd. You are going to be a little bit more ambitious, a little bit more driven to accomplishing something, some enhancement, some engagement in policy. So stay sharp, keep working hard. You'll need it.
Great. And then Laura?
The advice that Ben gave at first is exactly what I was going to say, and that is that definitely gather stories and information from as many different current and former fellows as possible, realizing that everybody's story and experience is just that one person's story or experience. But there's so many different agencies and different offices within each agency, each of which is its own little microculture. and that interview week was so interesting and fascinating. Just all going from office to office to you learn so much. And so talk to a lot of different people, ask a lot of questions when you do actually get into the interview week, and then in terms of being a successful, whatever it was, science policy fellow or whatever, influencing science policy. I don't know if I do that. I don't think I really do. I just being it's the same advice I would give anybody. Just be kind and work hard. Be good to other people. Be a good team member, and I think you'll be fine. Just as you would be in any other position. Yeah.
Great. So that brings us to the end of our time, and I wanted to thank both Ben and Laura for joining us today and sharing their fellowship experience and policy insight with us. And I wanted to thank all of you in our audience today for joining us and for your questions. If we weren't able to get to your questions today, please email us at fellowships@AAAS.org. And then plan to join us on September 17th for the next chat in the series, where you'll hear from our first Judicial Branch Fellow as he shares his experiences and insight in connecting science and policy with the law. And you'll have a chance to hear how faculty have enhanced their career paths